Mark, always a pleasure to chat with you. Well, forgive me for starting with Monday's performance and result, but the reason I ask or start with this question is, how has this week been in response to what happened on Monday? What's been the message?
It's been as I've expected. I've said many times we're an honest group, and I think we understood that we fell short of what we produced before. Probably for the first time. For the most part, in all the other games I've been involved in, I think there's been positives to take from the performance. If we're honest, there wasn't too much on Monday, but I think the way I'm viewing it is that it's not the norm. It's from my point of view, and my intention is that it's a one-off, and we bounce straight back. We've got a great opportunity. We had a great experience, albeit difficult circumstances with the game. Last time out here at Valley Parade, and really pleased with the performance. Well, more of the same, clearly, with the intention of keeping full complement on the pitch. And I think if we do that, then there'll be a good performance produced by the lads.
Yeah, discipline. Has that been something that you've spoken to the squad about?
Well, on paper it looks poor because we've had 2 sending-offs in back-to-back games, but overall that's not been a concern for me. I don't think we're a team that's indisciplined in terms of what we do. Always in games and throughout the season you'll get moments in games where maybe a little bit of frustration comes out, and that's probably the main factor behind the sendings off that we've had of Powdy and Elliott. But no, I don't think it's a concern for us. I like to think all my teams have been aggressive in terms of wanting to win balls and been determined to, but I would never advocate going over that line. I think you just got to be competitive, and physicality comes into this. Sometimes it can be interpreted by officials in a different way, in the wrong way, but in fairness, they probably got the 2 sending it off right, if I'm honest.
I hope this isn't me clutching at straws at all following Monday, but you spoke about the reaction from the team in training this week. I guess there's value for you in that moment to see how they do respond to
yeah. I mean, the training's been first class. We've trained at stadium again, and good high level. So I don't anticipate there being any reaction from Monday at all. My expectation is that we start as we finished the last time out here. We were excellent. We got cheated off the pitch, probably the opposite on Monday, but in football most of the time you get an opportunity very quickly do something about a poor performance, and we've got that opportunity tomorrow.
From a player's perspective, is there a slight deal of pressure on tomorrow's game given the home form of late? I know it's been better, but that win still eludes you.
Yeah,
obviously you're up against a team that, with all due respect, have been.
Well, we keep on talking about we're really close, but we need to do something about it and actually get it over the line, and that's what we'll endeavour to do. We're at home. We're up against a team that's obviously had a difficult season. They haven't got a lot to play for. We've got more to play for, because it's about making sure that we get a positive result, backed with an impressive performance. We get all those factors right. Then I would expect to win the game. It's sometimes not always the case. You can do everything right in football, and sometimes it flies off somebody's backside and you lose the game 1-0. But I don't anticipate that happening if we do our jobs right and correctly. I sense there's a feeling of, well, okay, we slipped up badly against Colchester last time out, but when it's not acceptable and it won't happen again, certainly not at the weekend. So I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah, I suppose it adds to that point, doesn't it, in terms of putting in a performance and getting something out of tomorrow, given what happened on Monday from a fan's perspective. And
I mean, we disappointed a lot of fans who travelled a long way. Goodness me, we knew how far it was to travel, and we had the same journey, and it's not great when you come back on the bus or whatever means you take to get down there, to come back on the back of a defeat. It makes the journey seem even longer. So we don't want that experience again, and we didn't give our travelling support, which is always great. We didn't give them anything on the day to really get behind, and we need to address that and make amends for that. So hopefully tomorrow we'll go into the game with the same attitude and the same start that we had against Tranmere, which I thought set the tone for us and enabled us to have the performance that we did.
When we spoke after the game on Monday, you hinted somewhat at the potential decisions that had been made on some of the futures of those players that are out of a deal in the summer. I don't know how close you are to the full picture on that one, but with that in mind, is there a temptation from yourself to maybe look at some of the younger players in the squad, and I throw into that bracket Keane, Reece, Finn, to give them a chance under yourself to get some minutes?
Yeah, there is that possibility, but the reality is that the guys, the young lads you mentioned are here next year anyway, so there isn't really that urgency in terms of understanding what they can bring to the first 11. I'll have time to see that, so I don't feel any real pressure to give them game time, and notwithstanding that they've all trained really well. In fact, Finn unfortunately is injured, so he probably will miss out anyway. But the guys have trained well. They're ready to be called upon if needed. But at the moment, I'm still looking at guys and still making opinions.
Probably answer my next question then, but I extend it further maybe to, and I know you've been asked about this recently, the under-19s and how well they've done in their own respective season. Is there a temptation to look at them and throw them in at the deep end and see how they fare?
Yeah, but it's got to be at the right time. With okay, they've had a great season, I have to say, and you want to reward that and recognise that. But the step into the first team should always be really difficult to take, and sometimes you need a little bit more of a body of work to really justify those decisions. So I'm pleased, absolutely delighted that they've had the season they had. There's a lot of good work being done at that level, but to me that step to the first team is a big step, and one that they have to justify and really deserve, and there's still time for a lot of those guys.
You mentioned Finn's situation, then any other team news going into tomorrow's game?
Oscar isn't available, Oscar Threlgaard. Abu Issa is still coming back, looking really good. The decision on him really is whether or not we give him some game time before the end of the season. I know he's pushing to do that, but we've got to be careful, and given the length and nature of the injury, so we don't want to compromise him at this last stage. So we'll do it on a daily and weekly basis leading to the end of the season in terms of Abu, and see where we think we are in terms of giving him game time. But apart from that, everybody else is available.
What's the nature of Oscar's absence?
He had a calf strain, so he's not available. Probably be out a couple of weeks, I would imagine.
Just on that, bringing players back into the fold and being gradual from their long-term injuries, we've had the opportunity to speak to Leanne Goll before yourself, and really, as you can imagine, a very insightful chat with him. He's a good character to deal with, and he spoke of finding that balance, striking that balance between not rushing himself back and yourselves not rushing him back, but also the understanding that he's out of a deal in the summer and he wants to show you as much as he can what he can do. As a manager, how do you balance that situation, the enthusiasm against the care that needs to be taken?
Yeah, I think with Lee, I think we've had enough time in terms to be able to do that. He's obviously had significant injury and been hampered by injuries throughout his career, so it's about managing the individual. It's not one size fits all. We don't obviously make everybody train the same way or the same intensity, certainly not if they're coming back from significant injuries. So that's just, in my view, not the way to do it. So I think we've protected Lee up to a certain point in terms of, clearly he probably would have wanted more game time, a little bit like Abu Issa as well, very similar, but I think the way we've been able to introduce him just off the bench and not really giving him minutes over and above what we feel he's capable of dealing with, and hopefully we'll get to the point where he'll be able to start games even before the end of the season, which is the end game from our point of view. Undoubtedly, injuries have hampered him, and that's why maybe his career progression hasn't gone how probably he felt it should. He's a talented boy. Everyone can see that when he's fitting well. But it's just the injuries that need to be managed, and hopefully we've shown to him as well that we have the understanding and the knowledge of how you deal with players who've had a history of injuries, and I think my knowledge and the coaches and the sports staff that we have here are mindful of that, and I think that's reassuring for him.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say the impact that he's had when he has been handed the opportunity since coming back has been very evident to see him. You've spoken about his ability. In terms of making a decision on his future, is the biggest factor of consideration his injury record and his susceptibility to getting injured? Well,
that's part of the conversation, but his ability I don't think is in doubt, but we've got to get to a point where everybody's comfortable with where he is at the moment, fitness-wise, and where he's comfortable with where he sees his future. So we're still having discussions. I'm encouraged by what I hear when I speak to him. He's really about just getting back playing. I think that's the priority, and anything else will follow on the back of that. So I think he's still mindful that he just wants to get game time, and then everybody can make a considered decision then.
I'm conscious of the fact that whenever we speak, particularly ahead of games, that summer undoubtedly comes up and how that will look moving forward, and indeed the main topic, which is recruitment. And I know from a City fan perspective that's high on their agenda. I know there's been talk about bringing in a recruitment director. How close are you with that situation?
I think we're very close. Probably we've only got a few loose ends to tie up with the individual that we would like to work with. So I'm hopeful that will resolve itself in maybe a week or a couple of weeks, and then we can really get down to collating all the information that we already have, in fairness. So it's not a process that's been ignored. We've been doing a lot of work, obviously myself and Glyn and everybody within the club, Mark as well, has a lot of knowledge of players and who's available, and obviously everybody has the list, reams and reams of list of players that have contracts, so you're always, every single day we're overlooking them. So what we need obviously is somebody with same level of knowledge and maybe different insights, but obviously the ability to collate all that information and make sure we're getting the right people to concentrate on. They have to be viable targets, no use chasing rainbows. It's you can waste a lot of energy and a lot of time chasing guys that have no intention of coming all out of your budgetary threshold. So it's about making sure we understand what we can go for, what's available, what we can afford, clearly, but getting the best bang for our buck.
So this one single candidate, all being well, what will that individual bring to the table when it comes to recruitment?
Well, as I've said, you bring, what we're looking for is obviously a knowledge of many markets. I think that's a prerequisite, and certainly all those boxes have been ticked in terms of who we want to bring. So I think we have to just make sure that the knowledge of the players, not only their ability but their financial demands, and whether or not they fit with obviously what I want to do in terms of the team. But there's a lot of choice, and the difficulty will be making sure that we get the best value for what we can spend. And I think with the knowledge that we have within the building at the moment and what we want to bring in, I think we'll be good in that respect. And don't underestimate the pull of Bradford City. We can plead a good case in terms of, well, listen, we're a great option for anybody who wants to play in front of a vociferous crowd in big numbers on a great stage, and you can test yourself here. So I think in comparison to other clubs who will have other attributes, and I think in terms of what we can offer, players in terms of their career and how they want to progress. I think we're a good choice.
Yeah, is that ideal wish list? Does it have clear targets on it now?
Oh yeah, we know a lot of targets. Some will fall by the wayside. We understand that because people will take a different direction. But from my point of view, it's about making sure the levels are consistent. It's no good going after A targets and then realising you can only have B or C level targets. So I'd rather have the option of, okay, if we can't get target A, one falls by the wayside, I've got 4 of a target A's rather than 3 and 2 target B's and C's, because if that happens, that means we're underselling ourselves and we're not getting the right level in. So the exercise is to make sure we've got A targets, 3 or 4 in each position, and then we'll get the best options we can.
When do those conversations start with prospective targets? Have they already, or do they wait until?
No, we've had discussions with managers, with directors of football. There's lots of different labels on these guys. There's loan managers, and there's a lot of people that have the A and the nay on these decisions. So it's just making sure we know the right people to talk to, and if we have to, maybe have to circumvent some of them. Usually they're agents, if I'm honest. So it's about pitching to these players. Some players will have bigger offers in terms of wages, but it shouldn't always be about that, and it should be about, well, actually, is that the best decision for my career, or is I'm just interested in money? And you understand, agents will always sometimes be viewed in a better light if they get more money for their client, but the reality is sometimes they make wrong decisions career-wise. So we've just got to pitch to these players that may be wavering between whether or not to come here. We've just got to make them realise what we can offer and what we can offer to their career.
Say loan managers, Premier League loan managers?
We'll have all those conversations. We need to, because we can't leave any stone unturned. We don't want to be kicking ourselves come the start of the season thinking, well, goodness me, for the sake of one phone call, we haven't got somebody who somebody else has got, who we would have preferred. So no, all those conversations, all those phone calls will be made.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
On that front, Mark, obviously, are you sort of keeping an eye on potentially the teams coming up from the National League with the financial power that some of them seem to be possessing, that could sort of skew?
Well, it's probably the teams that go out of this league this year are ones that financially aren't at the top end of the league at the moment, whereas the ones that are likely to come in, or some of the ones, clearly it looks like Stockport will go straight up, but obviously my hometown club of Wrexham are backed by Hollywood Stars, so they have that financial backing that is very, very useful at this level. And a lot of clubs come up from the National League and have really good seasons and go straight up again. So just because they get used to that winning and the momentum, and there'll be at least two good sides coming up that will test a lot of the teams in this league. So that's something that we're aware of.
And obviously, potentially someone like Salford could still be in this division. So again, there are teams there who can sort of offer pretty substantial.
Yeah, but back to my point about what we can offer, and it's about players recognising that, and hopefully the agents of the players and the clubs maybe of loan players that they're looking to place. I know for a fact the conversations we've already had that people view us as a good position for their good players to go out on loan to. I think certainly we'd be at the top of the queue for the majority. I would think if any top club was looking to place their players at League 2 level, I think we would be in first 1 or 2.
And you mentioned Wrexham. I was going to ask you about, obviously Scunthorpe are in this strange situation where I think 72 years they're about to drop out of the league. I mean, obviously, it happened to Wrexham in 2008, I think it was. How does it sort of affect the people around it? And because obviously it's always been
it's very difficult, and Wrexham been close on a number of occasions of getting out to the National League, but it's a really difficult league to get out. Obviously, only one automatically goes up, and they find it very, very difficult. They've been close in the past, but fallen the playoff finals at Wembley against Newport. I was actually at that game, and yeah, it's difficult. And Scunthorpe will probably find the same, and so it's been a difficult season for them, but it's not easy. As with all leagues, predominantly the ones that spend the most edge their way to the top of the league if it's been managed and they've got good people around the club. So yeah, money always will play a part. It doesn't guarantee it, but if you've got financial backing and good people within the club and good recruitment, then you can be successful.
And obviously they've still got these 3 games left when they're already down. It's probably a little bit of a sort of almost like a twilight zone for them a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I would imagine it would be quite difficult, but there's always that concern that maybe the shackles are off because there's no pressure on winning the game. They can just go out and express themselves and free themselves up in terms of what they're able to produce. That anxiety won't be in their play. They've changed the team around, different formations in recent times, given that where they found themselves in the league and they're obviously the fate that we're likely to happen to them. So they're clearly looking at things differently for next year. So that makes our preparation for the game a little bit more difficult because we're not quite sure which way they go in terms of personnel. But we can have a fair stab at it and hopefully we're somewhere near.
I think the bookies are putting about anything from 6-1 to 8-1 to win tomorrow, which is again
well,
sort of slightly
that's a little bit unfair because we've obviously watched the last few games, and albeit difficult games for them, they've still acquitted themselves. They've still got talent within their group, so we won't underestimate them. It's not a given. So we've got to make sure we do our part, make sure we do what we need to do in terms of a performance level. If we do that, then I'd expect us to win, but it's not an easy game.
And you were obviously talking about the players suspended, and obviously Elliot Watt's now available. I mean, I was going to ask you about Elliot. He's one of these players that earlier in the season, a lot of sort of supporters sort of think, oh, is he that good? And Derek Adams is certainly a big fan of him, and he seems to have gone up a gear since you've come in. I mean, do you sort of see a lot of potential in a player like that?
Elliot's done really well since coming. I don't think, notwithstanding his sending off, which wasn't great, but I think his impact on the team has grown in terms of his influence where he plays and his importance to the team when he links the play, and obviously we start to circulate the ball, then obviously a lot of the play goes through him, and he's grasped that role and understands the role and understands what's required and what we ask of him in terms of the ability to get on the half turn, angle passing forward, and just setting the momentum of the team, and he's done that really well.
I mean, because considering his age, he's played a lot of first team football. I mean, he's hardly missed a game here. You know, which I think he's only.
Yeah, what I like about Elliot as well, he's vocal. We probably need a little bit more of that, if we're honest. We're quite quiet in terms of on the pitch. I think we probably need more guys within the group that are able to understand what's actually going on as it happens and be able to manage themselves and manage from within the team. It can't always be myself and Glyn shouting bowling on the sidelines. They have to have that ability to be able to recognise what's happening and act accordingly. So we probably need to be better in that regard.
And obviously, and so talking about Elliot, I mean, presumably he's another player coming out of contract. Presumably he's a sort of player that other clubs will probably look at.
Yeah, we'll get offers for players that we want to keep. That's a given. We understand that, but we've just got to make sure that we're in the ballpark when these decisions are made, and we're in there with a fighting chance of getting the players that we want, even the ones within the club now and the ones outside that we want to attract.